Well, today is June 15th, 2021. The Board of County Commissioners meeting will convene. If we could rise for the invocation and pledge, and that's by Pastor David Ganatone.
To the podium. Come to the podium.
Absolutely.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Father, as we come to you this morning, we're grateful that you are our Father, and especially not too many days away, we'll celebrate earthly fathers. But we pray, Father, today that you will guide the deliberations of this body, give them the wisdom and insight, and those who come to petition this body, give them clarity of thought and the ability to communicate what they need. And we thank you that you are an ever-present help to us, no matter what we face in our lives. In Jesus' name we ask these things. Amen.
Amen. Turn to the flag, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Next on the agenda is a couple of ceremonial presentations. I have the first resolution is for Parks and Rec. Good morning.
Good morning. That's good. That's good.
Thank you. Whereas the National Recreation Parks Association has declared July as National Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas Lee County Parks and Recreation touches the lives of individuals, families, groups, and the entire community, positively impacting upon their social, economic, environmental quality of our county, and whereas parks and greenways and open space provide a welcome reprise to our fast-paced life, high-tech lifestyles, while protecting and preserving our natural environment. And whereas parks, playgrounds, natural trails, open spaces, community, cultural centers, as well as historical sites, make communities attractive and desirable places to live, work, play, and visit. And whereas Lee County Parks and Recreation activities and leisure experiences provide opportunities for young people to live, grow, develop into contributing members of society. And whereas Parks and Recreation agencies provide outlets for physical activities, socialization, and stress-reducing experiences. Now, therefore, it is resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Lee County does proclaim July 21, 2021 Parks and Recreation Month in Lee County, and urges all citizens to visit our parks, especially the weekend of July 24th and 25th, when all parking fees will be waived at Lee County regional parks and boat ramps, and administration will be free. This is duly executed today, the 15th of June, by myself. Thank you very much.
Let's be on.
So no crazy outfits this year? Missed the crazy outfit?
Jesse, can I do this? Or I don't know who wants to speak. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
There you go. Commissioners, I can't say enough about thank you for your support of Parks and Recreation. I'd like to also thank the county attorney, county attorney's office, as well as county manager's office, and all the departments. But really want to say thank you to the great staff that I have. We wouldn't be near the place that we are now with our parks without their hard work and dedication. So please come out and enjoy our parks in the month of July, especially the 24th and 25th, and enjoy some, free boating and things like that. So thank you so much.
Big smile, Jess, please, right here. Gotcha.
All right. Thank you very much.
Proud of our park team. Good job.
The next ceremonial presentation will be by Vice Chair Pendergrass for the Florida Southwestern State Softball Champions.
Great. Thank you, Chairman. If I could have the coaches and the team, I think we've got some Buccaneers here in the courtroom this morning.
All right, bring them up here.
Come forward, and we got your own photographer here. I'd like to come forward, just line up here by the podium, and we have a resolution. Congratulations for the team.
Congrats.
Rah, 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 rah.
Looks like you could be dual sports, basketball and softball. I mean, and volleyball. Okay, volleyball. There you go. So everybody knows that FSW is their champions this year in Lee County. We want to recognize them. So the resolution reads as is. Whereas the Florida Southwestern State softball team captured the NJCAA National Championship, bringing this prestigious title to Lee County and Southwest Florida community. And whereas, despite the challenges our students and athletes have faced during this school year, the students, staff, and fans of FSW helped the team push through to a 49-4 victory. Congratulations again. This dedicated coaches, parents, and fans of the Buccaneers also should be recognized for their time and commitment that allow these young women and coaches to perform like champions. And whereas this championship season will be part of Lee County and Southwest Florida history forever. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Lee County, Florida, does hereby recognize the team, coaches, parents, school administrators, faculty, and entire student body of Florida Southwestern University for helping to bring this prestigious national championship to Lee County, duly executed the 15th day of June 2021. Signed by our chairman, Kevin Wayne. Congratulations.
Go Bucks.
And I think a few of us went there, but it was Edison College when you went there. So.
Rowdy.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Great. And would like the coach or anybody like to address the board and the audience? Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Rowdy.
Go ahead.
You can stand up here. I'd like to thank the county commissioners for recognizing us. Also like to thank the parks. Jesse was there from day one when we started playing in the city of Palms. Because of our location, there's two schools of thought: build within your community or actually be a Chamber of Commerce person. Everywhere I go, I say palm trees, white beaches, 70-degree weather in February. We actually have every continent, we have all but one continent represented. We actually have Owen's family moved down from North Carolina. She's our FSW student president. And Allison's family, once they came and visited, they moved down from Missouri. So we'd like to think, at least, if we're not bringing them, we're going to bring the parents and the families down. But everything that the county and the Parks Department has helped us out, that put us in a good position where we are. Best place in the world here in Southwest Florida. Thank you.
Congratulations.
That's wonderful. That's pretty cool.
A lot of talent in Southwest Florida, that's for sure.
Absolutely. That's great. Next, we'll move on to the recap. Under the recap, we have a commissioner item, Commissioner Mann, to update us on the Oxbow Island, Lusatchie Regional Park, and myself will give an update on Lewisham and the meetings that we had. Those are the only items on a recap. With that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Any items that the board would like to pull?
None.
I'd like to pull number 19, Mr. Chairman.
Number 19, any other items? Okay, can I entertain a motion to approve the balance?
I move the balance.
Second?
We have a motion, a second on the floor. Any public comment? Seeing none, any other discussion here at the commission? Seeing none, any opposition? Seeing none, motion carries unanimous. Number 19.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 19 is a proactive approach by the county commissioners to award a contract for algae remediation and nutrient reduction services. Mr. Chairman, if you'll indulge, I wanted to ask a few questions to our Department of Natural Resources to kind of get an update on the situation on Matlacha right now, and then also understand a little bit about what the plan is to engage these folks should they become necessary.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, please.
we would like to have Mr. Salyer introduce this item.
Okay.
Sure, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. As you indicated, we are engaging Solitude Lake Management as the county's vendor so that we can quickly deploy them for the collection and disposal of blue-green algae or similar threats to our waterways. And having this pre-positioned contract, as you know, can speed up any response that we need to make should we encounter a situation like we did in 2018. Now, that said, we do understand that there is a situation now where, we have an accumulation of some kind of biomass in some canals in Matlacha. The Natural Resources Department is evaluating that right now to determine what it is. Initial indications are that hopefully it's not cyanobacteria related in the sense of being toxic, but again, we just don't know yet. So I would just let the commission know that if you engage this contractor, they are available, of course, to deploy in emergency situations. The commissioner's question about the exact context in which we would deploy them is a little uncertain at this time because each situation is so unique. So we would have to evaluate how large is the problem, is it growing, is it diminishing, is it are there toxic levels that are dangerous to health, et cetera. I hope that helps answer the question.
Sure, and what kind of technology will they be using? How will they remove or remediate the algae?
So my understanding, Commissioner, is that they have different technologies at their disposal, but I would ask Mr. Ottolini to provide a more detailed answer to that.
Great.
Morning, Commissioners. Roland Ottolini, Natural Resources. The vendor that we have on board, Solitude Lake Management, they've used different practices in the past. Back in 2018, they did some nanobubbles, ozone-infused nanobubbles in some of the canals in Cape Coral. Recently, Cape Coral had some blooms by their golf course out Palmetto Pines. They used clay material to try to flocculate the algae and bring it down. They've used other techniques that are, at their disposal. They're a relatively small firm in terms of, but if you have an isolated area, I think they could, address it.
So if I'm hearing you right, they actually have different applications for different situations that may arise.
That's right.
Okay, excellent. I think that answers my questions. I just wanted to, real quickly have that conversation about what criteria we would look towards, in order to activate these folks. I think it's a really great proactive approach that we're taking here to get them on board and ready to go should anything arise. And with that, I'll move approval of the item, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have an approval on the floor. Second. I have a second. I do have a follow-up question just for edification and clarification. So individual projects inside the sheet that we have indicates that it's more than $100,000 will come back to us. But obviously, if we have a couple of different minor events, we're giving you the authority, it be need, to take care of that situation.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, that is correct. I do want to point out there is no specific funding tied to this potential contract. We would have to identify the source of funding as we go, but so long as the deployment was less than $100,000, you are correct, that could be done on an administrative level. Anything more than that has to come back to the board.
So procedurally then, if you were to do that, you obviously would deploy what you need to and then come back to us and we'll account for it either out of our enterprise funds or out of excess reserves?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just want clarity.
Mr. Chairman, a little follow-up, and thank you for pointing out, blue-green algae, makes the headlines just about every night on the 6 o'clock news. And what I'm not clear on is, what are we doing differently here? Roland, if you would come back. Everybody's looking for the silver bullet to deal with blue-green algae, and it's a major issue as we've all come to understand. Is there reason to hope that are we doing something differently through this possible contract, that we could hope that maybe there is a solution for the waterways of Lee County in the future? Or is this a finger in the dike?
The purpose of this contract is to have somebody at our disposal so that we could execute action in a relatively short term. The technologies we've used are pretty much what they were available to in 2018. Every day you're hearing of different types of products and what have you. So that is certainly of interest to us if there's something more efficient. But DEP has they've dedicated this whole blue-green algae task force to look into these various technologies, and DEP approves new vendors have to go through DEP to get their technologies approved. If they are approved, we would certainly entertain that to the point where Solitude Lake Management, if they have those tools at their disposal, is really up to their resources within the firm itself.
Are you guys, your shop, Natural Resources, exploring this product that the Israeli company has been given some headlines for last week?
We're definitely interested in what, any technologies that are proven effective, and so we certainly track that.
Well, we haven't done anything. We haven't gotten a little creek or rivulet somewhere that we're going to try that technology.
They pretty much tried it at the areas that we identified, the Franklin Locks. There was a couple, I think there was a boat ramp, a private boat ramp in Alva or Olga area, as well as Davis Boat Ramp. I think they've already applied that technology in those areas. So what we had was very spotty. What's going on Matt Lachey is I don't believe is a blue-green algae. It's a different type of bloom.
It sounds like we would be making a mistake if we put a whole lot of faith in this. We're setting aside a product and having it available if we have a recurrence of the 2018 nightmare. Is that what this is all about?
Yeah, if I may,
Essentially.
Commissioner, yes, this is emergency response is really what we're talking
Okay,
about with
it's
this.
not the silver bullet yet.
Correct. We wish.
Okay, thank you for bringing it up.
I have one question, sir.
Sure.
Roland, would this be limited to certain areas of the county? Like, for example, there's the canals that are not fed by the river. Would they be eliminated from this process, or is there certain areas of the county that would not be, this could be used in?
Well, I mean, typically, the most effective areas where it's accumulated, a lot of times it's dead-end canals where you've got a high concentration. Much of that's based on winds, and once the wind starts shifting, we start getting different weather patterns, that situation can move, so it's kind of chasing that, but that would be where the best efficiency would be, where you can isolate it, where that's where some of these folks have used these bubble curtains where they've actually isolated the issue and addressed it.
So if it's within the city limits of Cape Coral, we could still use it within the city limits of Cape Coral, or they're going to work with us with that?
They've used similar techniques, City of Cape Coral.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Just to follow up, a couple of issues. This is on the Cape Coral agenda. They're looking at that. To Commissioner Mann's issue before, the Water Management District applied a technology by the company that's based out of Israel, and they certainly utilized that. That's something, but the DEP approves various vendors. The vendor that we, in my briefing, certainly is one of those vendors that are approved. I think as we evolve into technology, we'll utilize those based on DEP approval, and then we'll measure the results thereafter. But I think this is, as Commissioner Hammond said, it's being very proactive on a vendor that obviously has gone through the scrutiny of the DEP, gotten approval, and obviously in our toolbox if we need be. So just I want to add on that, having been somewhat involved, and the interesting thing that Commissioner Pendergrass and Roland pointed out is that we took a lot of photos the Friday before the Colonel came on Monday, and wind changes things dramatically, because photos I had on Friday in the areas that we went to, it wasn't there because wind shifted. So it's hard to track and hard to see, and wind has a lot to do with where it does settle and where it does move, and it does break it up. So those are my only comments. Good motion, second. Any other discussion? Any public comment? Seeing none, any opposition? Seeing none, the motion carries unanimously. That has concluded the consent agenda. We will move on to the administrative agenda. Item number 1, please.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Salyer, will you introduce this item?
Good morning, Commissioners. We are asking for you to approve two new programs to support affordable housing. I'm actually going to ask Mr. Loveland to run you through the details of the two programs, and we will be available for questions afterwards.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dave Loveland, Community Development. What's before you today is a request to approve a new affordable housing support program. And I want to start by thanking Mickey Rosdowski in our planning section for the hard work that she and her staff put in to create this, with input from John Talmadge from Economic Development and Jeannie Sutton in Human Services. The proposal, the funding we get through the SHIP program from the state to support affordable housing typically is applied toward nonprofits, but we're also getting interest from for-profit developers through the Florida Housing Finance Corporation. They have a couple of programs that offer tax credits. One is for 9% and one is for 4% through the SALE program. And they're very competitive programs, and so one of the ways to improve your scoring in that process is to show some local support. And so that's usually through some kind of financial contribution. What we're proposing for the 9% program is we have the Affordable Housing Trust Fund dollars. That's a non-recurring revenue source. It's about $1.5 million that were paid in by developers in the past to be able to do additional units through affordable housing programs. So what we're suggesting for the 9%, the minimum local contribution to get points is $460,000. We're proposing a $500,000 zero interest loan for one application under that program. We can only support one a year, and if we are awarded one a year, then it's 2 years before we're eligible again for another project in Lee County. So under that scenario, we're looking at a 5-year payback of that loan. It would allow us every 2 years to make a commitment of the $500,000 loan, with repayments allowing for that to become a recurring process down the line. For the 4% program, they have a little more flexibility, and the local contribution is a lot less. $50,000 is the minimum requirement, and it can be in the form of in-kind types of match, so we can waive our building permit fees for that project as a way to cover that $50,000 commitment. We can commit to multiple applications on any given year. Only one's going to be awarded each year. And because this involved a building permit fee question, we did discuss it with the Building Industry Oversight Committee at our bi-monthly meeting last Thursday, and they supported that concept of the fee waiver for that affordable housing program. What we would have is a solicitation process for people that are interested in getting a local match for these applications to submit their projects to us so that we can evaluate those and determine the ones that we think are feasible. For the 9% program, we would have to screen that down and make a recommendation on one project to support. The other ones, for the 4%, we can support multiple projects. Only one would be awarded each year.
Any questions for the director?
Just a comment.
Huh?
Just a comment when appropriate.
Sure.
Sure. There's no question that just building affordable housing or regular housing has been increasingly challenging. Cost of land's gone up, cost of materials gone up, cost of labor's gone up. And I sit on a statewide program, and so we're getting feedback from the whole state. And it's the only thing we can break it down to is how can we help on the financing side? You know, because all these other things are really uncontrollable. So I think a program like this and our participation kind of fits in that wheelhouse. We can add a little bit of softening to the impact of doing this. So I think it's well thought out. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, just so I understand this, the money goes to a developer who wants to build affordable housing, multifamily units?
Yes, sir.
So, and the people living there will be renting these units?
Typically, yes.
The 5-year interest-free payback, if he borrowed $500,000, if one guy came in and he could take it all, is that how it would work possibly? One developer gets all the 500. He has to pay $100,000 a year back, or he has to pay all 500 in 5 years. I mean, that's pretty, normally financing is 20 years, 25 years, but this is indeed a 5-year payback interest-free.
Correct. That's what we're proposing. And that would be a small part of their total financing for the whole project. And at the 5-year stage, typically the project would have been built and established, and they would have then moved forward to their final financing.
Because $500,000 isn't going to build a very big complex. What do you guess a typical unit would go? I mean, 3 or 4 million?
For building a complex, it depends on how many units they have, but it can be multiple millions.
So this is not expected to do the whole thing by a long shot.
This is just to indicate a level of.
Pulls the pieces
support.
together so a developer looking at this can say, I got 5 years of $500,000 for free, so this could make it work.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner, maybe to try to simplify it or clarify it, it's more in my wheelhouse, but it's not uncommon during construction phases that you use various pockets of funding, and then you get permanent funding to basically bundle the entire situation and finance it long-term. I suspect that'll do, but they pick up credits here for that, and obviously it helps our area address a need that's really severe.
And there's a waiver of permit fees at our level?
Mr. Chair, if I may. So, yes, Commissioner, the $500,000 interest-free loan is really to signal local support to the state in order to give these applicants additional points and make their financing applications more competitive. The same would be true of the $50,000 fee waiver. We would do that at the staff level. What we're asking for is authorization to allow us to vet the developers that come forward. We would say, yes, this is a legitimate project and a legitimate firm. If you are awarded state financing, we will waive $50,000 of building permit fees for your project. Only one of those applicants will be approved by the state in any given year. So the maximum fee waivers that we would grant administratively in a single year is $50,000.
We get asked about or leaned on for waiving various fees for affordable housing and other good projects, old folks, poor folks, whatever. Are we treating these folks differently by making this fee waiver a part of this as opposed to what we do in other programs for folks in need?
Commissioner, it is a little different in that this is a state financing program that provides statutorily for this kind of local contribution. And again, this local contribution is an indication of our support that then makes the developer's application more competitive. So it is a little bit unique, yes, sir.
But governed and designed by state law.
Yes, sir.
Okay, it keeps us from getting conflicted with other local interests.
Yes.
Chairman, if I could. Dave, during this development stage, they would still be paying impact fees, all 5 categories, though?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so just for the clarification, because there's people out there want to make sure that everybody pays their share of impact fees. So impact fees would be collected for this, but the building fees within the county process would be waived. So,
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like one more comment is that there are, as you said, Mr. Commissioner, a number of groups out there that need help. In our agenda today, we had 3 separate issues that are coming, a combination of state and federal funding, which total about $3 million, all going to various aspects of homeless. So I think we continue to try to vet and look for those. So
I move the item, Chairman.
I'll second.
Motion and second. I do have a public comment. Marcus? I'm sorry.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, County Commissioners, County Manager staff, County Attorney staff. For the record, Marcus Goodson, Housing Authority, Executive Director, Lee County Housing Authority. And I wanted to first thank you for the staff for considering this item and bringing it forward. Lee County, like most areas of the state of Florida, are suffering from a lack of affordable housing. It's not getting any better, it's actually getting worse. What I would like to say this morning, I think this is a great program that you are considering, but I would also like to give you a couple things to think about. So as the County Housing Authority, we are involved in the development of affordable housing as well since my arrival there 2 years ago. We are partners on 2 developments currently. One is called the Civitas Project on Pine Island Road in Cape Coral. We have a 40% stake in that property, that project. The second project is St. Peter Claver, which is a 120-unit project. Rick Miller, you may know him. He's the developer. Catholic Charities will be involved in that project as well. It's going to be located on Michigan Avenue. We have a small stake in that project. These 2 developments alone will net the Lee County Housing Authority close to $1 million in developer fee. Those funds will then be used for additional affordable housing. But the point I want to drive home this morning is that when you consider a process to award these funds to a developer, there are only a couple of developers that I'm aware of in Lee County that focus on affordable housing. Rick Miller is one. The gentleman behind me, Michael Allen, is partnering with me on the Civitas project is the second. You're going to have developers from around the state. They're going to come into Lee County looking for these funds to develop their projects. If they're not partnering with a local housing provider, selfishly, the Lee County Housing Authority, I would submit to you, then these units may or may not remain affordable for the long term. We are mission-driven for affordable. If we are a partner in the project, we can guarantee that the development will remain affordable long after we're all gone. So I want you to consider that, because you're going to receive a ton of requests for this $500,000, and anyone who's coming into this community from outside of this community who may not be mission-driven the same way the Housing Authority is mission-driven, I want you to look at that very hard. We, as a partner, when developers call us to partner, we appreciate that consideration, and we think as you create a point system that you would consider that in your evaluation if they are partnering with the local housing authority, and selfishly the Lee County Housing Authority. So I would like to add that this morning for your consideration.
Thank you, Marcus.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? I have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion at the commission level? Any opposition? Motion carries unanimous. Item number 2, Madam.
Mr. Chair, we would like to ask Mr. Winton to introduce this item.
Good morning, Commissioners. This agenda item ratifies the general consensus of the board at your June 8th workshop. It is to keep all electronic tolling on the bridges, Midpoint, Cape Coral, and Sanibel Causeway permanently. So what this item will do is it will do that. It will keep the same toll structure as far as the toll you pay as you go through now as it was pre-COVID, which is $2 for the Midpoint and Cape Bridge and $6 for the Sanibel Bridge if you have a transponder. If you're pay by plate and don't have a transponder, there will be also an administrative fee as you go through the tolls of $3. And what that pays for is identification of license plate, verification of license plate, invoicing, and postage. This is all intended to be implemented in October, and what the county is doing also in order for folks to get the transponder is we're giving out free transponders, and you can get those by going to the county's website. On the front page, there's a thing you can click on, a link you can click on to get a free transponder at the county's website, legov.com. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Any questions for Pete?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I know we covered this very extensively at our last work session, so some of this will seem a little repetitive, but for folks who might be hearing about this for the first time and watching the meeting today on TV at home, a lot of questions I get are around the employees who were in the toll booths. Can you tell us what happened to the folks who were taking the cash tolls?
Yes, so there were only 2 employees that were let go. One was a probationary separation. Another was they abandoned their job. Otherwise, vacant positions were unfilled, and also the rest was either attrition through retirement or resignations. So all those folks left primarily through attrition. And then we have kept some in order to do the license plate verification.
Okay. And then, you know, real quickly, the other question, and it's a great question for Mr. Winton, people I think, are under the impression that the bridges are already paid off. They say the bridges have been paid for multiple times over. Is that true?
No, I mean, so the Sanibel Causeway bridges were all completely replaced in 2007, so there was debt issued for that, and that debt will finally be repaid in 2035. The Midpoint Bridge still has debt associated with it, which will be repaid in 2027, but what I want to clarify that there are plans now to replace the westbound span of the Cape Coral Bridge, as well as widen both the Cape Coral bridges and Midpoint bridges to 6 lanes. So there will have to be new debt incurred to do that. So, and that debt is repaid with the tolls, as well as the surplus tolls are used for both the Cape Coral and the Midpoint Bridge corridors.
So if I'm hearing what you're saying correctly, then any toll money that we take in that is above and beyond what it costs to pay for the mortgage, if you will, on the bridge, that money's going towards future bridge projects when we have to rebuild the older span of the Cape Coral Bridge and other projects along that same corridor then?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. That answers my questions.
Any other questions?
I had a question for staff. Christine or Pete, have we had any concerns of residents? I know it's been brought up before in the past of residents or do not have the transponders. I know it's free now, but the frequency, Cape Coral, for example, once or twice a year, they go there, they have no other option, either to get the free transponder or just pay by the mail by the administrative fee. There's no options for that. Have we had any feedback from the community about that?
Mr. Winton?
I'm not aware of a lot of feedback. We had a lot of, had a town hall meeting out in Cape Coral where we presented this plan about a month and a half ago, and also at your meeting, at your workshop on June 8th, the mayor of Cape Coral was there as well as one of the council people, and they both were in support of this plan. So we have received very little feedback on this as far as.
Anything for the rental car companies? We have a lot of visitors here. During the season, we have over 1 million people come through our airport with rental cars coming across the bridges. Any feedback from their companies or anything?
I'm going to ask Randy Searchy to come up and answer that question.
Okay. Just because we have a lot of visitors that we may not be aware if they're here visiting for a week, they would have to get a transponder or you have to get the bill, and the rental car companies are going to get hit with a big bill from the rental car company. Yes, Randy.
Good morning, Commissioners. Randy Searchy, DOT. We work closely with the rental car companies. We send them blocks of transponders, and we have a certain percentage in a deal crafted with them. It's just pennies on the transaction, but what they charge their customers, we have no control of.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Last question or last item, just for the record. I mean, this really is a program of trying to get to the point of integrating Leeway, SunPass, Easy Pass. So this is really of streamline this so we're able to, from a technology point of view, be in line with what they do and how they do. I mean, some of the changes that we're making was really to be adaptive because the challenges we have, like with motorcycles, the way the discount is read, that's consistent in all those other plans. So this is really more long-term. I just thought the audience should know that if they weren't part of the toll workshop. I mean, as the integration takes place, we'll look to technology a lot more, and hopefully we'll get the results of the merging and everything working out. Is that fair?
Yes, the goal is to make this a much more efficient process using the technology that is already available out there.
Super. Okay. Yes.
One thing besides the tolls and the fees and so on and so forth, I think what meant most to me or in our meetings was the fact that it's a public safety issue. You start going down to where toll booths were and you're trying to find the lane for the passes and so on and so forth. It causes some confusion. And the other thing that it'll expedite traffic movement. And I think as we know that's very important as we increase traffic on the roads. We don't have things slowing down and pay tolls, so on and so forth. So I think it's going to be a real positive in that effect. So nice work.
Any other comments? Can I entertain a motion?
Need a motion?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The commissioner from Alva moves that we accept this new plan.
Great.
I will second.
Motion is second on the floor. Any other discussion, Commission? Any public comments? Close public comment. Back to Commissioner. Any opposition? Seeing none, motion carries unanimous. Item number 3.
Mr. Chair, I would ask that Mr. Salyer introduce the item.
Thank you. Commissioners, we are asking you to authorize Lee Cares reimbursements for pediatric COVID-19 vaccinations and testing to Lee Memorial Health System. There are 2 motions here. The first would amend an agreement already in place that reimburses Lee Health for testing that they've provided to Lee County School District faculty, staff, and students. You'll recall that the CARES Act term originally expired at the end of the last calendar year, so this amendment would simply extend the time, allow Lee Health to be reimbursed for testing that they've done in the semester that concludes, I think, at the end of this week. The second motion would approve a new subrecipient agreement with Lee Health in a not-to-exceed amount of $105,000 that would allow them to set up mobile units for vaccination of students ages 12 and over throughout the district. Available to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for Mr. Howdy?
What does a single test cost?
That is
We're looking at $250,000 reimbursement here. How many tests did that represent? I'm just curious.
I do have the single test cost, but I will have to get that to you. I didn't bring it with me today. What I can tell you is the commission had allowed up to $250,000. It looks like the final reimbursement requests are going to be closer to $75,000. But I'll get you the specific test numbers following the meeting.
And are we using those same free federal dollars that we got in our first wave of money that came rolling down here?
Yes, sir. This is all the first wave of funding through the CARES Act.
Thank you. Yeah, just let me know when you figure that out.
Yes, sir.
Call me.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may, just for my own clarification. My understanding is this is our opportunity to basically pass through or allocate some of the federal CARES dollars that were given to us for the COVID-19 pandemic response to Lee Health and the school system for this program that will include vaccinations. But if I'm reading correctly here, it says that Lee Health is the one who will provide the necessary equipment and supplies, and they will provide the necessary forms and waivers. So this is a voluntary program. Parents must give consent, and it's on the schools and Lee Health to make sure that that all happens, correct?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay.
This is simply pass-through funding. They are responsible for all delivery, program delivery.
Okay.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion?
Move that.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Any other discussion? Any opposition? Motion carries unanimous. Next item, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, we'd ask Mr. Cody to come to the podium and introduce the item.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners, County Admin, County Attorney's Office. I stand before you this morning with Transit's request to approve the application and acceptance of the American Rescue Plan grant for approximately $12.7 million that will be dedicated to salaries and benefits, and we plan on utilizing these funds over a 3-year period because they end, we have to use them by 2024.
I'll move that on.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second on the floor. Any public comment? Close public comment. Seeing none. Any other discussion? Any
Good job, Rob.
opposition? Huh?
Good job, Robert, and his staff for getting this. This is definitely going to help.
This is great. Any opposition? Seeing none, item carries unanimously. Next item, please.
Mr. Chair, we would ask that Mr. Searchy come to the podium and introduce the item.
Commissioners, item number 5 is to award the CEI Construction Engineering Inspection contract for the upcoming Ortez widening from Colonial to Martin Luther King. We've coordinated with the city of Fort Myers on the Hanson Street extension and their upcoming Edison Street extension in this project. It'll be about a $22 million project, and we received a $2.175 million state appropriation that I understand survived the veto. So we should have, we have 90% design now. We should be 100% later this fall. We'll bid it then, get ready to go early 2022.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Randy, so currently on Ortez now, there's the new roundabout there at Hanson and Ortez. This construction, is that going to damage it? I mean, it's kind of like we've seen roads put down then tore up a day later, but that's not going to destroy any of that current. That roundabout's still going to stay in place there, right?
No, we had actually, in a joint effort design, we had actually had that designed ahead of time. They
For
just
this
got there
type of
first.
road, that's what I thought.
So we're just going to enhance it and add to it.
So it's going to stay as it is with the enhanced lanes to it.
Correct.
Thank you. I move the item.
Second.
Motion second on the floor. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Any other discussion? Seeing none, any opposition? Seeing none, item carries unanimously. Next item, please.
Mr. Chair, we'd ask that Ms. Keys come to the podium and present this item.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is a request for approval of a professional services agreement to complete a countywide master wastewater plan. This is a joint effort with Natural Resources to meet new regulation that is included in our county's Caloosahatchee River and Estuary Basin Management Action Plan. It's also included in the new legislation, the Florida Clean Waterways Act. The plan will be a coordinated effort with the municipalities and other wastewater utilities. However, much of our focus will be on the unincorporated area, septic conversion projects that impact impaired waters. The plan is due to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection in 2023. However, we intend to bring back preliminary information for board consideration and direction on prioritizing and initiating projects, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have one, Mr. Chairman. We've had several workshops, in fact, a year apart, two of them, talking about septic tanks and conversions, and particularly in North Fort Myers, where there's been a questionable area for some time. How does this relate to the two studies and the follow-up, or the study and the follow-up study that we've talked about in our workshops? Pull this together for me.
Certainly. It folds into this plan. We basically want to bring information back. That's part of that preliminary information that we'd like to bring back before the plan is complete. But that whole study area will be included in this plan.
And looking 2 years ahead, what are your anticipations as to what we're going to be, y'all be asking us to consider at that point, once we got this information?
Right. So it will be, our first ask will be, how do we prioritize? We've got many septic systems within impaired waters. So we want to make sure that we're getting your input and answering your questions on how we prioritize. So one option may be to start in North Fort Myers, since we have a lot of information there. It'll include Lee County Utilities and FGUA, but then we need to go beyond that and prioritize projects beyond that.
Projects beyond just septic tank conversion?
Correct, because we will need to look at not only septic tank conversion, but we also need to provide alternatives for new development that cannot connect to centralized sewer. So that is also part of this evaluation, to say if you're unable to connect to a central sewer, what are alternatives that provide improved water treatment?
And that's some of the answers going to come out of this.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Pam, thank you very much. And I think there are two words. One was priorities and alternatives. And the materials that you provided in advance brought a lot of clarity to an issue that is complex. And so thank you for that. And I think it gives some confidence going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Move the item.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Any other discussion? Any opposition? Motion carries unanimous. That concludes our administrative agenda. We'll move on to a public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. David Halverson of our office will present your public hearings this morning.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. David Halverson with the Lee County Attorney's Office. I have all three of your public hearings this morning. I'm providing the affidavits of publication to the clerk. Item number 1 this morning is a petition to vacate the public's interest in a 1,065 square foot portion of the platted right-of-way, drainage, and public utility easements in Tract C of the Savona Bay replat. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions?
Move the item.
Second?
Motion and second. Any public comments? Seeing none, I'll close public comments. Any other discussion? Any opposition? Motion carries unanimous. Move on to item number 2, please.
Item number 2 this morning is also a petition to vacate. This is a petition to vacate the public's interest in an unimproved public utility easement centered along the common property lot line between lots 2 and lot 3 of the platted lots at 206 Irving Avenue North in Lehigh Acres. If there are any questions, I will be happy to answer them.
Any questions?
Failing public input, I will move the item.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Any other discussions? Any opposition? This motion carries unanimous. Item number 3, please.
The last item this morning, item number 3, is a resolution amending the Bristol Road Paving CIP MSBU. The original MSBU was created in 2020 with the intent of installing potable water lines and paving Bristol Road. Due to certain easement restrictions, it was determined that removing the water portion of the project would be the best course of action moving forward. If there are any questions on this item, staff is available.
I just had one question, Mr. Chairman, if I may. So after removing that water option, the residents still wished to proceed?
That's correct. Pursuant to the administrative code, it requires a 50% plus 1 approval from the affected property owners, and we obtained that through the amendment process as well.
I'll move the item, then, Mr. Chairman.
Motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Any opposition? Seeing none, motion carries unanimous. That'll conclude our public hearings. Next part of the agenda is commissioner items. Mr. Mann, you have an item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I view this as a very good news, just a briefing. We're going to require some action on it at our August meeting. We've been talking about moving for the second phase, the second half of riprap along our regional county park, Cooshatchee Regional Park. We were hoping to be able to include in that a little island that is right in the middle of our park on the shoreline, but ownership was an issue. Who did it belong to? We thought it was belonged to the Water Management District, the big district. They said no, and for various reasons they were unable to participate in helping us along the way. Thanks to Robert Clemens. Where is he? Curly back there. He, with the enthusiastic push from behind by Mr. Lavender, spent an inordinate amount of time digging into the ownership of this little island. It turns out it belongs to the state of Florida. Florida owns the entire park that we run by contract with them forever, and it's implied that we would run this little island as well. But due to a technicality years ago, they didn't draw a straight line across it. It just followed the shoreline, so it has not been included in stuff that we worry about. The state of Florida, after conversations with Mr. Lavender, is pleased to have this included, and said we really kind of thought it was all along. So there's a little amendment that they're preparing that's going to be brought to us at our next meeting, which will allow us to save this vulnerable little island that's been washing away by erosion. So this is good news. It's all coming together, and Jesse has already budgeted for this in his initial, when he went out on the street for bids on this. So August, we'll take another step, and then it's done. It's good news, and thank you again for the commission's support on this as we explored it.
My pleasure. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hammond, you have any item?
No items today, Mr. Chair.
I do. As you all know, and many of you have met with, Colonel Kelly came in last Monday. The purpose of his meetings was try to have face-to-face contact with us and an opportunity to listen to what he needed to take into consideration. That was pretty productive. I thank staff a great deal for really coordinated logistics. It was a unified effort from our congressman to the chair of our delegation to the county commissioners to local support. We all seem to resonate and speak on one voice, all seem to be in consistent direction on what we'd like to see take place. As a result, on Thursday, there was 6 models that came out, AA, BB, CC, DD, EE1, and EE2. Staff has provided me an oversight of those items, and certainly CC, EE1, and EE2 seem to be the most beneficial to us. They'll get into the weeds to some degree. Some of the challenges is this will take place within the next 30 to 45 days. Additionally, for the record, Colonel Kelly is retiring September 10th. There'll be a new Colonel James Booth who'll be taking over in his regard. Commissioners, there's going to come a point in time where staff will evaluate these options, and I think it's going to be in our best interest and the community's best interest to get behind their recommendation and advocate before the final selection is done. I do anticipate staff to do that. They'll certainly brief everyone accordingly, but at some point in time before we gather again, it might be appropriate to write a letter supporting what staff is recommending for an appropriate model that we all too. I think it's going to be imperative on this area to certainly let the Army Corps of Engineers know exactly where we stand relative to the model that we believe in is best serving our area. It takes into consideration, obviously, flows not only on the low flow but at the high flow. It also might take some tweaking. But there's a little flexibility I'm going to ask for and your indulgence upon staff's recommendation to all of us. But obviously, as the chair, I'd like the latitude to be able to write a letter, and it may be when we're not having public meetings, but we're working, to write a letter to the Army Corps supporting what staff's recommendation is. And, you know, trying to get behind that. The favorite right now is CC. I think we've all been advised of that. There was some changes to EE1 and EE2 that seem to be, have certainly some potential with some tweaks. Anyway, there's going to be some tweaks necessary. I'm just concerned, I don't know if there's going to be any action necessary, but in the event between now, the timeline is between 30 and 45 days that they'll select a model, and then they're going to look for some type of, what type of support from the public and what type of objection at that point in time. We might really want to get together. The good news is that CC, as it's called, has support both from the East Coast and the West Coast as one. Both Congressman Donalds and Congressman Mass have come together and said that CC is the best model for us with some tweaks. I just want to try to be proactive during the point in time if there is a window of opportunity before we have a public meeting and staff gives us direction on what to go. I'd like some indulgence to write a letter supporting what staff will do on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners. That make sense?
You need a motion for that?
Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, I think a motion would carry greater weight, so yes, sir.
I make a motion to give the chairman latitude over the next 6 weeks to address any issues related to lake releases to the Army Corps of Engineering.
Second.
Thank you. I appreciate the indulgence. I will look to staff clearly for their guidance, for their direction, and assuming that every step we take, you'll be more than aware of what we're doing. This is much better than a month ago. And I appreciate everyone's involvement very much. It was a coordinated effort, and it's nice to see our community come together as one and certainly let the CONA know just how important water quality is to this area. So thank you for your indulgence.
I could add, thank you, Chairman, for meeting with them. And I've been here, I've been here a little bit longer, but I think the 8 years I've been here, I've already met with 4 different colonels. That's the problem with the Army Corps dealing with it on the federal level. They obviously work for Congress, and there's such a turnover there. once you get a relationship with one, they leave, and they go out in the private sector usually. So thank you for meeting with them, and hopefully the next colonel will be attentive to our concerns here in Southwest Florida, the water quality and the water level that's washing away the island by Commissioner Mann out in Alba there. There's just so much water rushing down the river, it's just washing everything away. So thank you for meeting with them and your indulgence on this.
Mr. Chairman, let me just thank you for your willingness to absorb all of the heat and pressures and take the lead on all of this on behalf of the County Commission, including the letter last month that we were all trying to figure out a way to support that without having met on the issue, and that's kind of where we are again here. We're all concerned about the releases, and we, I think, all share the concern that in the past, Lee County has not really been given, paid much attention to in the adoption of previous release schedules. And we've kind of said, folks, that's coming to an end, and you're going to hear from us more often. I don't know how we're going to do this. I don't want to tread on the sunshine law in any way, but to the extent staff is pulling this together and preparing, working with you and preparing this letter by the chairman on our behalf, to the extent we can get copies of something so we know what's about to fly.
I envision, Commissioner, that as we take every step, staff will identify, email to all of us, just if we could have no one respond. Obviously, you absorb that. You need to have any briefings, feel free to do so. But the letter, obviously, staff will have the latitude to write on our behalf to do this.
Particularly well, since we're gone in July.
We don't have a public meeting, but we're all going to be working here. We're all going to be reading those emails and understanding what it is. To share Commissioner Pendergrass's concern, this will be my sixth colonel. I've been at this a long time. I've dealt with them. I will tell you that Colonel Kelly, in my opinion, has been the best colonel of the five so far. I hope that Colonel James Booth is as flexible and willing. But I think to your point, Commissioner, honestly, this area has spoken loudly. It's unified more than we've ever been, and I can't thank all levels of government to act on behalf of the citizens of Lee County and Southwest Florida, because we've really spoken loudly. And he came here and spent, a pretty long time with a lot of people, and it was united across the board. Furthermore, the one thing I also did fail to realize is that there was also Chauncey Goss, who's the chairman of the Water Management District, that participated in some meetings the evening before. So he's heard very loudly from everyone that's involved in water. But this commission, I'm honored to be part of, and I'm honored to write the letter on this commission's behalf and certainly get it out. But I appreciate your indulgences. Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
Chairman, I'll chime in also. Thank you very much for your work prior to coming here and the continuing work here. Have you met with Colonel Booth yet?
I've not. So
has that transition started already so we don't get delayed in that transition process?
Colonel Kelly has assured me that he will bring him down here to meet us before he leaves. He was just announced last week. They haven't necessarily done a public announcement. They've told people with the hope it will come out. I know there's a transition associated with that. Based on trying to pinpoint Colonel Kelly, it'll be around August when he comes down here.
Okay. Well, we're going to obviously do our work at our level here, and I'm hoping that transition is efficient and effective so we don't lose any time. Thank you.
And too.
Mr. Chairman, just finally, not to belabor it anymore, but I wanted to share your comments about Colonel Kelly and just thanking him for, I think he's displayed tremendous leadership over the last couple of years and tremendous flexibility and concern for our coast in particular. I enjoyed the meeting that we had with them, and I think this is a very smart approach you're taking, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for bringing it up this way and talking to us about it, and for certainly staying as in touch and involved as you are, and look forward to supporting what you write.
Well, listen, I couldn't do it without staff, and staff has helped me every step of the way, from the logistics to making sure that we look at factual scientific data that's driving this, and that's what this is all about for our area. But thank you for the indulgence. Any public comment? See none, any opposition? That motion carries unanimous. Any other commissioner items? Commissioner appointments?
one, Mr. Chairman, a reappointment of Phil Buck to the Roadway Landscape Committee.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any public comment? Any opposition? Motion carries unanimous. Commissioner Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two reappointments. I'd like to reappoint Timothy Hennessy and to the Human Services Council and Amy McLaughlin to the Community Action Agency.
I'll second that. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment? Any opposition? Motion carries unanimous. I do have one reappointment. It's Jean-Ann DeWalt to the Human Services Council.
I move the item.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment? Seeing none, motion carries unanimous. Commissioner Pendergrass.
I have three. I have a new appointment of Scott Hills to San Carlos Park Special Improvement District, reappointment of Johnny Streets City Council, Human Services Council, and reappointment of Patrick Hayes, East Mullock Water Control District.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, any opposition? Seeing none, motion carries unanimous. Commissioner Sandelli.
Chairman, I've got four reappointments. Al O'Donnell for the Roadway Landscape Committee, Stephen Brown for the Roadway Landscape Committee, Nikki Semmer for the San Carlos Island Street Lighting Unit, and Roxanne Hussafus for the Human Services Council.
Second that. Motion and a second. Any public comment? Any opposition? Motion carries unanimous. Next item will be county manager items.
Mr. Chair, we do not have any items for today.
We do have a workshop this afternoon at 1:30.
We do have a workshop this afternoon, and it is the first draft of the continuation budget.
Wonderful. County attorney.
Mr. Chairman, we would respectfully request, due to the recent rainfalls, that you terminate the state of local emergency and repeal the burn ban.
I got 3 inches of rain in Alva yesterday. I was hoping you wouldn't ask us to continue that thing.
No, sir, we're asking for a repealer of both, please.
So moved to do what he said.
I'll second that. We have a motion, a second on the floor. Any public comment? Seeing none. Any opposition? Seeing none. Motion carries unanimous. Last item on the agenda is public comments, and I don't have any cards. Is there any members that have not submitted a card that would like to have a public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Little thing.
Give that to her. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good morning, Jasmine Miller, JD. Just want to remind all of you, it's now rainy season, and the homeless, they're still on the street. So if they're sheltering at the library at night, I don't know if it's nice for the police to come and run them off into the rain. What can happen, and what should you do to help them? I think you need to get a few hotel rooms for emergency purposes and send the people there when the rain starts. You know, we can't sleep in the rain. So I think, Matthew, Mr. Roger Mercado's office, you may want to start doing your work. Just go out on the street and give these people who are sleeping in the rain at night somewhere to stay. Some of them won't go to the triage, so you may need to look for hotel rooms. Have a good day.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. I'll call for an adjournment. Thank you all.